This is a pre-recorded discussion for our lesson 2, contracts, overview of contracts. So basically, this is a recorded version. So if you have any questions, just try to contact me in our class GC. Okay? So again, our second lesson is contracts. Now, we need to understand first what is a contract. What are the basic concepts of contract? Because before we undergo uh, for a deeper version of contract of talking about contracts, we need first to understand the most basic concepts of a contract. Okay, so contract is an agreement between two private parties that creates mutual legal obligations. A contract can be either oral or written. However, oral contracts are more challenging to enforce and should be avoided if possible. Now, basically nowadays, oral contracts are not that common. When we say contract, it is mostly understood as a written contract. But there are also some agreements kasi sinabi nga dito, it is just an agreement between two parties. So it's either person A and person B, establishment A, establishment B, and so on and so forth. So basically, yung sa contract lang is uh, pinuput into writing or they are just giving terms talaga on their agreement, like memorandum of agreement, treaties, deed of sale, deed of donation. So all of those are contracts. There is a agreement between two parties. Okay, and the most common one are written contracts. Some contracts must be written in order to be valid, such as contracts that involve a significant amount of money, over $500, or that is around maybe 25,000 pesos. But nowadays, it is already a common practice that any deed of sale or any deed of donations are already being put into writing and being notarized. Okay, so pumupunta sa public sa attorney and then notarize yung agreement or yung contract nila for more legal basis, to gain more legal basis. So contracts are part of everyday dealings in all aspects of life. Therefore, it is crucial to understand the rules governing them to ensure you have a valid contract. So that is why meron talagang notary public kasi the work of the notary public, once na notarize yung document, it is now a public document. It is now a legal document that the court will honor. Okay? So all valid contracts must include the following elements to be enforced. Number one, an offer. I will pay you $1,000 for 1,000 copies. Of course, there should be, again, it is an agreement between two parties. So in either way, in small ways or big ways naman talaga, there should be an offer. There is a mutual benefit for both parties. Bayaran ta kasang 250,000 kay kung ibaligya mo sa akon ang imo nga salakyan. So that's a simple offer. Another is an acceptance of the offer presented with other person accepts 1,000 for 1,000 cupcakes. So of course there is an acceptance. Once there is a term, yung conform, CONFORME, conform. So that means that the other party is agreeing to the terms being stated or being stipulated in the contract. And then a promise to perform. Other person says they will perform. And then a valuable consideration, a time or an event of when the performance must be made. So 1,000 cupcakes exactly 2 weeks from now. So there is a time frame. Terms and conditions for the performance. Again, and performance, and then the performance and the delivery of the cupcakes and being paid by the money, okay, being agreed. On top of that, the courts will not enforce certain contracts unless they are in writing. So tulad yan ang sinabi ko kanina, courts nowadays really give importance or will honor more yung mga written contracts, especially those contracts that are being notarized. Kaya ang dami-daming nagpapanotaryo because that will make the document legal and binding. So these contracts fall under the statute of frauds and must be in writing. They include marriage contracts, contracts not to be performed within 1 year, interest in land contracts, paying decedents' debt guarantees, and sale of goods contracts over a specific amount. So as you can see here, yung pinaka-basic na contract talaga ng tao na makikita natin is marriage contract. So all of these are legally binding. All of these are valid because they are being performed by two parties who agree to the terms and conditions. And then, of course, there should be an agreement between the two parties. Ano ba yung mga common reason bakit na-question yung contract? Now, they are questioning the validity of the contract. They are questioning the capacity of one or more persons involved in the contract. So like psychological incapacitated, minors. So kung sila yung pumipirma sa contract, they are not actually being guaranteed na legal. That is why some kapag minor yung kailangan, minor yung papasok, like for example, a trust fund, because trust fund is also a contract. Any form of agreement between the parties is a form of contract. So kapag minors, merong guardians. Instead of minors yung pipirma, yung guardian yung pipirma in behalf of the minor. And then most contracts are governed by the state statutes, and therefore it is important to consider the local laws when dealing with a contract issue. So what are the required elements? What are the required elements of a contract? Okay, so there are 5 elements that are required for any contract. First, the contract must have a legal purpose and cannot be used for illegal purposes. Again, dapat nga legal purpose. There should be a legal purpose. Hindi siya yung mga against the law. Like, di ba, wala ka may makita nga deed of sales ang drugs, sa illegal drugs. Wala ka sa may makita nga contract or written agreement sa human trafficking. Wala ka sa may makita nga document sa carnapping because they are not binding, because they are not having that legal purpose. Okay? So, for example, contracting to commit a crime, like hiring a hitman, di ba? Like, katulad na kanina sinasabi ko, hindi siya pwede. Di ba daw parang kapag magko-contract ka dahil nag-hire ka ng hitman na may papatayin ka, of course, parang babalik pa yun sa'yo. That contract can be used against you pa as evidence na ikaw yung may main motive to kill another person. Second, there must be a mutual agreement between the parties. This is also known as the meeting of the minds. One party must have offered an offer to another party for acceptance. So for example, a signing of a contract shows that there is a mutual agreement among the parties and everyone is on the same page. So kaya nga sabi ko kanina, there is a meeting of the minds. Kasi hindi pwede na yung contract na yun is one-sided, na doon lang sa isang party. Ang contract, the validity of the contract is within the signatures of those parties, 2 or more parties. Kung walang pipirma doon, kapag isang party lang ang pipirma, that contract is not binding because the other person, with his or her absence of signature in the contract, means they do not agree to the contract. So that is not binding for those who don't put their signatures or don't affix their signatures on that document. Some offers may not have an expiration period. If so, then the offer remains open for a reasonable time. Offers can also be revoked until the acceptance occurs. Acceptance usually means agreeing to the terms of the offer, and if there is any change to the terms in the acceptance, then it will be considered a counter offer. States differ on this, and it would be ideal to consider the regulations in your local jurisdiction. So, meron kasing contract, parehas-parehas ang load. Di ba, may expiration period siya. So, this contract is only valid for 1 year. This contract is valid until December 31, 2020. So, that's it. So, merong mga contracts that have expiration period. But also, there are also contracts na walang expiration period. So, dito sinasabi, kung wala, then the offer remains open for a reasonable period of time. Third consideration is key in order for the contract to be valid. Consideration is when both parties agree to provide something of value in exchange for a benefit. Consideration can be something like a car, money, or even manual labor. It has to be something of actual value. So here in the consideration, it is just the exchange or yung property or the equipment that is being exchanged to the contract. So, for example, sinabi dito, car and money. So, sa car, it is a property. So, commonly, it could be a deed of sale, deed of donation, like that. And then money can be a deed of donation, estate, pamana, or here, manual labor. Yung even our job contract, di ba? May mga employment contract tayo. So that is already considered as a form of contract. There is also a distinct difference between gifts and promises. For example, if someone gifted you a handbag, it is not considered a contract, or even if they promised to give you a handbag and they did not, there is still no contract. However, a contract exists when the handbag is being exchanged for completing a task promised to you by a friend. Like, if you clean my gutters, then I will buy you a handbag. So again, there is a big difference between gifts and promises. When we say gifts kasi, di ba, ginahatag mo lang na siya without condition. So, ginhatag mo lang siya. So, example, nagamba ko sa imo nga regaluhan ka sang 5,000 pesos by December. So, actually, that is a gift. That is not a promise. Okay? So, basically, I am not liable to give you 1,000 pesos or 5,000 pesos. Pero, kapag sinabi ko nga, I will give you 5,000 pesos kung ibibigay mo sa akin yung bag mo. Okay? So, that is already becoming becoming now binding because there is already an exchange. So once na may exchange kayo, that is already binding. That is why there are people being filed or being sued for estafa because they are just getting the property promised by the other parties without them giving their share of or their part. Fourth, the parties must be legally competent. Minors and mentally impaired cannot validly contract. Additionally, the party must be of a sound mind while contracting and without the influence of drugs or alcohol. Lastly, all parties must come to an agreement based on their own will. Contracts will be void if there is a mistake, duress, or fraud by one or more parties. This is common because like what I have said kanina, ito yung common na lusot or na buho na hinahanap or ginagamit ng mga abogado to disable or to discredit the validity of the contract. Like for example, ito yung common na mga reasons why there are a lot of marriages being annulled, di ba? Of course, hindi naman talaga yung minor because kapag nagpapakasal, either in church or in civil, may birth certificate na talaga na hinahanap. Pero usually, yung mga couples filing for annulment, kung hindi man abuse, physical abuse, isa sa mga ginagamit nila is mentally incapacitated, meaning yung isang party hindi siya of sound mind. What is the importance of having a sound mind? Meaning, kapag may sound mind ka, okay yung utak mo, meaning you agree to the terms fully, you understand the terms. Kung hindi ka sound mind, parang napilitan ka lang magpirma sa contract without fully understanding what is being put in that contract. That is why there are a lot of lawyers disvalidating or discrediting the contract by citing age, whether minor siya or minor siya, and of course, the mental capacity of the other party. So what is considered a breach of contract? What do you mean by breach of contract? It is now that a point in time wherein one party does not honor the contract. Okay? So what is considered a breach of contract? If either party fails to fulfill the legal obligations under the contract, that party has breached the contract. If one party violates the contract, then the other party will suffer economic losses. For example, if you hired a construction company to complete a project according to a certain deadline, and that company failed to do so, then you will most likely suffer financial losses because they failed to keep their end of the deal. So this is very common now, yung contract, yung mga agreement between parties. Now, for example, dito sinabi kasi na, for example, ikaw, businessman ka, gusto mong magpatayo sa business. And then, siguro by that time, June, ang gusto mong ipatayo is now maybe a firecracker business. So, paputok. So, kailan ba uso ang paputok? December and then January. For Christmas and New Year. Yun yung peak season talaga ng mga fireworks. So, pag sumutong June, pumasok ka sa isang contract with a construction company to build the building. Okay? So, nag-hire ka sa construction company para ipatindog tong building na gusto mo para sa imo nga fireworks company or fireworks business. Now, ang agreement nyo is babayaran mo yung company ng certain amount, let's say 1 million pesos, and then kailangan niyang matapos ang construction by by November. Kasi by December, dapat operational ka na. So, by November, dapat tapusin na. Yun yung nakalagay sa contract. Nag-agree kayo, which means nagperma ka, nagperma si construction company or yung representative niya, and then there is already an agreement. May contract na both parties may kopya yan. And then nagka-problema si construction company. By November, wala niya pa natapos. Basically, aarap pa lang siya sa mga, let's say, 75% natapos sa construction. So basically, with that said, hindi ka pwede maka-operate or hindi mo pa pwede magamit yung building and hindi ka pa makastart sa imong business. So ang natapos siya, February na. So, yung February, the next year, saka ka pa lang nag-start operate. Now, from February until December, dugi ka kasi wala pa talagang, hindi pa yun ang peak season for fireworks. So, yung time from December to February, that is actually now a liability sa construction company. If you have a good lawyer, then you can file for damages, for economic damages. Now, there are several options available to compensate for those losses. You can either sue for damages, demand specific performance, or terminate the contract. Okay, so like what I've said, there are different sets of how are you going to deal with that problem. It's either isue mo siya, kasuhan, or mag-demand ka. Like for example, instead of 1 million, bayaran mo na lang siya sang 500,000, 500,000 na lang, or so on and so forth. Or terminate the contract. Automatically end the contract. Wala kang siguro may babayaran ka, konti na lang. Instead of 1 million, kay since 75% pa lang siya, and then may economic damages ka, so mag-agree ka muna, ang bayaran mo na lang is 400,000. Depende yan siya sa iyo. Okay? Now, what are these different types of contracts? So, a unilateral contract has to do with a promise in exchange for a specific performance. A bilateral contract is a promise in exchange for a promise. The following includes some other common types of contracts. So these are all different forms or different types of contracts. It is already self-explanatory, so you can read on it. So keep in mind, we will be ending our discussion for week 2 by saying, keep in mind that contracts can come in all forms and are something we deal with every day. So if you are unsure of what sort of contract you are in, then you need to reach out to a local lawyer to find out more. So basically, now the contracts can come in all forms and all types. And the contracts are actually, we are not aware, but we are dealing on it daily. Okay? If you are unsure of what sort of contract you are in, always consult a legal person. It could be a lawyer or it could be a law student or a law graduate, as long as someone who can help you. Okay? So we'll be ending that discussion, and then again, I will try to record again the discussion for our week 3. Thank you guys.